And I saw Richard earlier on. I would like to say that guess who's back in my Tuesday evening class? Pat.
Hang on, Carl. Carl, I logged on at 6 o'clock last night and waited till 6:15 and nothing happened.
The Tuesday evening class starts at 7:30.
So Tuesday is 7:30.
Tuesday 7:30 and Wednesday is 6 o'clock.
Okay, carry on.
Right, so 7:30 Tuesday. Right, Pat joined us yesterday.
Oh, nice. I haven't seen Pat for a long time now.
So we've got 9 people on our Tuesday evening, so that's really good. And obviously we've got the usual Wednesday morning that I do with my Barry group, which is online. So right, arbor law. Has anyone ever come across it?
It's malt whiskey.
Right.
It is, but no. I'll say no for any archaeology involved.
It's ABORLOW, arbor law.
Well, no.
It's in Derbyshire.
Oh, you've been there, have you, Anne?
I've been there.
Oh my God, you've actually been there.
Well,
oh my,
you know,
hang on a minute, Anne.
They're flat. They are flat.
Oh, whilst
I've actually been to the
hang on, let me talk.
I've been to the 98.
I want to talk.
All right.
Right, good. Okay, you talk about your experience at arbor law, and I'm going to munch my croissants.
Well, we went to Derbyshire and we stayed in a cottage, the back of Haddon Hall, somewhere near Haddon Hall. And when you go over the common, you know, when you go over the dale, it's out on the, you know, it's out on the dale, you know, in sort of behind Buxton and the one down the Bakewell, you know, it's sort of over there. And but actually I wasn't that impressed with it. We actually went to Nine Maidens?
Yeah, there's a Nine Maidens nearby,
yeah, that was Bronze Age. But I've got a little piece written in a book about arbor law, if you want me to read it. It's not much.
No, I look, we're doing the line thing, right?
All right, so, yeah.
I want you, right? Bill has never been there. Richard's never been there. Up until 3 weeks ago, I'd never heard of the site. I want you, as somebody telling us about the site, as laywomen, just go for it. Describe the site positively.
Well, it's no, I don't know if I've been there or not.
Carl, carry on.
I've definitely been to the Nine Maidens, and it's like bronze.
That's in Cornwall, isn't it?
No, hang on, I got.
No, there is a Nine Maidens. And don't.
Yeah,
I don't want you to refer to anything. There is a Nine Maidens nearby, right? Arbor law is.
It's on the flat. It's on the flat, you know. Mm-hmm. It is. Whereas arbor law is up in the woods, I think. It's in the woods on a ridge overlooking, you know, overlooking the site of arbor law.
Right. Okay. So what? That description is completely not the site that we're going to be looking at.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, arbor law. Well, I thought it was like out on the common. So it was.
Yeah, it is out on the common.
Yeah, and I can't remember where these Nine Maidens were. All I know is
we're not doing the Nine Maidens.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right, let's start. Come on, let's start.
You know Derbyshire, don't you, Bill? You've been there.
Yes, I do, but not arbor law.
You know, apart from the actual hills, there's also dales. You know, there's like flat.
Yes, I know.
Plains, you know, and
I want to
It's
hear
on
about
one of those.
Arbor. Arbor.
There it is. Right now,
Arbor.
what did you think of the lecture today? That was good. Any questions, Bill? That's it. Right. Anyway, so we're back. We are back. So what we're going to do? We are back at Arbor Law, right? And this is what I want to do is do this from the other perspective, right? Because last night's lecture, I kid you not, we started at 7:30. We didn't finish until 10:20.
Well,
So following the line, as it were, we've got to keep to the ideas of the archaeology, right? Now, I've obviously presented a long lecture on this yesterday, a nearly 3-hour lecture on it. So it's not a site that I don't know anything about. But what I want us to do is to try and see the site from your eyes, to try and look at the site and understand it. Now, Anne reckons that she's been there, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to look at an image. Oh, no, I don't want an image of Amber Heard. How the hell did she get in there? I don't even like the woman. Right. Does that look familiar, Anne?
oh, yeah, no.
So it's a stone circle, is it?
Yeah,
Right.
it was.
No, hang on a minute. You're presuming.
No.
Oh, right. No, we've got to go with what you feel. So you feel it's a stone circle, but obviously the stones are recumbent. They're laying flat.
Yeah.
Now, if I was to give you some little facts of Arbor Law, right? What we've done, we're looking, for example, presume that this is Bruegel's harvester from the 1550s, right? Presume it's that, right? This is all you're looking at. So Bill's already given his little bit of a take on this. This is not the site that Anne went to. So it's not the site she was disappointed. Anne, what are you seeing?
Well, I read the description, so I know that they're recumbent stone circle. The stones were upright.
Hang on a minute. You're
No, they
presuming.
weren't.
No, Anne, I've corrected you, right?
They're limestone.
Right, okay. Now, what I was trying to get at is don't immediately, they were upright and then they were lying flat, right? What I'm trying to get at, Anne, is I want your impression. I'm not interested about what you've read. What are you seeing?
What I'm seeing is, it could be graves.
All right, nice. Go for it. Yeah, keep going.
They're stones, they're lying, and it's not a flat plain.
Right, okay.
It's a hillock, really. It might be a mound even.
Right, so you're putting a lot in there. There's a few nice things that you're putting in there, right? Does it look impressive?
Yeah, in its own way. It looks arranged. It doesn't look natural.
Right, that's really interesting, right? You're saying some really interesting things there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some textbook stuff from Arbor Law, right? So this is not really the stuff we're going to be looking at later on. So we'll be looking at it from a different perspective. So Arbor Law, the Arbor, A-R-B-O-R law, or Arbor Law, is a well-preserved Neolithic henge. So that's what you're seeing in the backdrop is a ditch with a bank.
Oh,
it lies on a Carboniferous limestone plateau,
yeah,
known as the White Peak area.
oh.
So this is in the Peak District. The monument consists of a stone circle surrounded by a ditch and an earthwork. Now, that's a little bit of information about Arbor Law. That's enough to get on with. Technically, this is one of the earliest scheduled protected ancient monuments in Britain. This comes in on the 18th of August, 1882. It's up there was some of the most important protected archaeological sites in Britain from 1882. But I, up until 3 weeks ago, had never heard of it. Bill had never been there, you had never been there, and I'd never been there, and Richard had never been there. So it's such an important site that none of us had ever really knew anything about it. So from the state of understanding history and archaeology, one of the things that we need to sort of appreciate is that there is a lot out there in history and archaeology that we simply don't know about in this room, as it were. And having a vague impression of an archaeological site, having a vague impression of the past, is actually quite dangerous. Because initially, when we started this today, Anne basically said, "Oh, it's quite a boring place. You know, there's nothing there. It's on a flat landscape." And Anne was talking about somewhere completely different. But if that had been written down, people would be looking at this. This doesn't look boring. This looks rather interesting.
Yeah.
So as we sort of move on a little bit, there it is. Welcome to Arbor, depending on how you pronounce it. It's a landscape which goes back 6,000 years. It's a 6,000-year-old ritual and funerary monument. It's a large stone circle with a henge, within a henge. Now, adjacent, there's a burial mound. There's other bits and pieces within the landscape. It's owned privately, and a charge is made for visiting the site. Right, so obviously it's a donationary charge. Now, it's not an English heritage site. It's a private site, but it's a scheduled ancient monument. And if we want to sort of, if we want to think about this site, and we want to give some information about it, this site itself is on par with the very greats like Stonehenge and Avebury, even though you may never have heard about it. So as we sort of try to follow the line here, VR, now VR is very interesting. There's two little plaques on the ground. And these stone markers are basically survey markers, and in fact, markers protecting the site, you know, basically VR, Victoria, Regina, and there's another one, GR, which means Georgius Rex. Yes, Georgius Rex, GR. Now, trying to keep with this, immediately on Tuesday, this is the direction we're going to go in. Immediately on Tuesday, somebody basically said ley lines. And it was, right, is there ley lines associated with this site? And the answer is yes. Now, if you want to follow the lines, if you want to follow the line of history, what we're immediately going to do is go to ley lines. I haven't really shown you an aerial view of the site, but we've got an idea of the site and where it is. It's in Derbyshire, basically in the beating heart of good old Britain. And if we sort of go off this sort of presentation, and we go there, and we just do this, and we go up on the screen, and we type in Arbor with an O. Arbor, there we go. And if we type in ley lines, okay, you notice that that's another spelling, but there's an R missing in that one, but you can spell it with Arbor, A-R-B or A-B-O-R. And if we do here, ley lines. Now we've got all these different things about ley lines. Now, one thing about it, Arbor, okay, you've never heard of it, but people believe that Arbor itself as a direct alignment with Glastonbury. And there you go. You've got a 90-degree angle to Stonehenge. Now, you're thinking, well, Carl, this is a bit odd. and we're thinking about St. Michael's Mount, St. Michael's Lay. And one of the things that we started talking about yesterday is rather interesting. In fact, we talk about rather interesting things all the time. But one of the key things that we spoke about yesterday was that the sense of these energies existing before the archaeology. Now, that's a very interesting point. So before we actually expand on that, obviously, Anne, right, this is definitely following the line, but from a different angle, from a different perspective, a line above the surface. So again, that mix match of lines that Tim Ingold was saying, the line following the line. This is somewhat a mental line, or is it a spiritual line? Is it an energy line? All those different words coming at you. And thanks to Bill, it started raining very, very heavily, if you're hearing that now.
Oh.
So here's another one. Look at that.
Yeah.
Now, arbor law is actually lined up on all those archaeological sites. I'm not going to bully Bill, but I'm going to say Bill can be a little bit skeptical sometimes. So can we all. So we're going to put Bill's skeptical hat on. Sorry for talking about you, Bill. He can say, well, if you can find all these archaeological sites and you can easily line them up on arbor law. Those archaeological sites are from different periods. They're not all from the Neolithic period. But then again, arbor law exists today. So in other words, arbor law is in the current consciousness. In fact, arbor law is within the landscape of living history. It's still with us today. So why can't it line up on all these other sites that have come after and come, if not before? And one thing I'm going to mention in regards to ley lines is that there's more to them than we actually think. Now, we've got to keep to the idea of arbor law and why it's aligned on all this just sort of, all this really, really interesting landscape. But just 2 points here. I've been to Glastonbury many times, and there's an obsession with Glastonbury and its association with ley lines. You know, Glastonbury and ley lines is basically like sitting down for a meal and making sure you've got your bit of bread on side with a bit of butter, right? Everyone likes a bit of bread and butter. This is basically Glastonbury and ley lines. You can't do Glastonbury without the ley lines. Now, one of the things with ley lines, and when we try to feel the arbor law landscape, and we try to get a sense of the arbor law landscape, what we've got to do, we've got to bear in mind energy. Energy is a very natural thing. And I'll give you 2 examples of that. And these are 2 very different, stark examples. And we've got 2 nice aerial views there, but we're not looking at them yet. And it's, as you go down, you've got lots of images. You've got the sort of arbor law stuff. You've got the association with sort of all the different energies. And that's another one for arbor law. And what somebody's done, they've sat down and they've said, right, all those different lines coming in from arbor law have come in from different parts of the landscape, different energies within the landscape. Now, I've said this energy thing, and let's try and explain it a little bit more. Now, energy itself, I am aware of Delphi and the Chronicle and the Oracle of Delphi. Now, the Oracle of Delphi in Greece, a soothsayer, you should say, told Alexander the Great he would conquer the earth. And Alexander the Great believed that. And look what Alexander the Great did. Alexander the Great was one of the great conquerors, one of the great military geniuses of all history. But that's you know, that's myth, that's legend, that's whatever, right? But when people have been to Delphi, they know that there are earth fractures. They know that there is sulfur coming to the surface and other gases at certain points, which would give a psychotropic effect to your mind. Your mind would start playing tricks, and you'd be able to sort of be a good soothsayer. So that's because of natural earth faults, and that is at Delphi. Natural faults, and obviously we're talking about all that sort of sense of energy and magnetism and things that actually go bump in the night. You wanted to say something, Anne?
No, magnetism. Yeah, I can understand magnetic energy in Britain. You know, I can understand that. You know, I thought that's what ley lines were. You know, magnetic energy.
Actually, the cloak of ley lines covers a number of different ills, right? And the number of different ills is that some people believe that ley lines are magnetic energy. Some say that ley lines are physical energy. Some say that ley lines are associated with water energy.
Oh, yeah.
For example, when we went to, I don't know if you was with us on the Uffington trip, and there was Michelle and Pete. Michelle had some bits of wood, and basically she was wandering across the field, and Pete come along and actually said, actually, where you're walking with those crude dowsing rods that she had some wood, and she was using them as dowsing rods. Peter actually said, actually, that there's a ley line going through here. She was actually following the energy that she had no idea was actually there. Right. So when we think about this energy, is it real or unreal? And when you think about it, in archaeology and history, there's so many things that we cannot explain. And I'll give you another really good example, right? And the really good example is, as you know, I used to live near Penrhys, just down the hill from Penrhys, the estate at Penrhys. Now, 1966 is famous for a number of things, including the opening of the Penrhys estate. Now, people said it was not a good idea to put an estate on the top of the hill with the and there was a reason why nobody had really lived on top of the hill, because people had been saying, you know, there's energies up there, and you know, this is like the wimpy homes of the day. That's nonsense. So they built 1,000 properties on the top of the hill. There's now 300 properties because they knocked most of them down in the 90s, right? And I actually wrote in my second book, Ghosts of Glamorgan, I actually wrote about entities that wandered around the Penrhys estate. And I knew nothing about lines and ley lines up until this point, right? And there were people saying that they were seeing monks, and it was a negative place. And there was a lot of violence, and a lot of negative things happened. And eventually, they knocked down 2/3 of the estate. Well, I didn't know anything about what I'm going to tell you. Down from the Penrhys estate, heading into what's known as the Rhondda Mawr, the big Rhondda, right? Because you've got Rhondda Bach and you've got Rhondda Mawr, Rhondda, and then you've got something known as the wonderful little Penrhys well house. There's a spring there, right? And it's to do with the Lady of Penrhys. And
Our
you go
Lady,
there. Yeah, go on.
It's a place of Catholic pilgrimage, because Our Lady of it was Our Lady, they said,
exactly,
that appeared there. But of course, you know, people have obviously adopted that now.
They have. There's a statue up on the hill. There's
Maybe a
statue.
pagan thing, but people have gone there to say the rosary for years.
And actually, this links in directly with Bill, because near Bill you've got Llangynoedd, and there's a pilgrim route from Llangynoedd all the way over the hill, all the way then down to the likes of Penrhys, and then it goes back over the hill. Right now, I didn't know that there's actually a fault line through there. There's a fault line that goes all the way up through the middle of where you got the Penrhys estate. Can you tell me that's coincidental?
No,
it's not.
No.
You know, you've got energy there, right? And it happens to be smack bang on the top of the hill where you've got all this energy coming into. And this sort of kinetic energy, this sort of weird sort of energy up on the hill. So that again, back to Arbor. We think of Arbor as a site that is very much lost in its history and its archaeology. But not to make it a pun, but there's a sense of powerful magnetism at the site. There's a sense of great power at the site. And what we need to do, we need to now see some more images of Arbor, and we need to give a little bit more information. But again, this is not so much an archaeology lecture, it's a mixture of history, archaeology, following the line, all these different things. So I'm keeping that powder dry for the next part of the lecture after this, right? So what I am going to do now go back to that presentation that we actually had. And what we're going to do. Oh, and Roger said to pass on his love to everybody, excluding Bill, because he's never forgiven Bill for the use of his mobile phone. Right. Now, can I just quote? And this is an important thing here. We're going to chuck some little quotes in here, the antiquarian references to the site. But we don't need to do any modern references to the site. We need to do some antiquarian references to the site. So let's just grab these up. There's a lot of information about this site. So, okay, let's start with this. The antiquarian record and the search for answer to that question. Beyond the perennial unanswerable, what was it for? And what does it all mean? The meaning of life. The most asked question about Arbor must be, were the stones ever upright? And if so, why are they now fallen? Now, Anne mentioned this earlier on. This is why I needed to shoot Anne down earlier on, because this was coming. And so in an attempt to address the mystery, we can perhaps first look to the antiquarian records of the site. Now, what we're about to talk about is very much to do with the other lectures that I do on a Tuesday and obviously a Wednesday evening. So next Tuesday and Wednesday, as Anne is aware, and Richard and I think Bill did join us last week. What's this thing about reconstructing archaeological sites? Unfortunately, Arbor has not missed the buggering about by antiquarians, which is a bit of a shame. Now, this image itself does actually date from a few hundred years ago, and I do believe that this is actually a plan from about 1785. But it might be either earlier or later, and I can tell you this would be, if this is the plan from 1785, it would be a Reverend Samuel Pegg. Now, Arbor was first documented in detail like this. It was known about before, in 1785. Now, I would argue that this is a reasonable plan. This is a reasonable attempt at a plan. It's okay. It's all right. And also a dramatic elevation view, which must have appealed to his readers and no doubt caused many a Georgian gentleman of leisure who fancied himself as an antiquarian to pay the site a visit. Now, I need to bring this story to you because I was doing my Christmas recording and it actually went out live, but obviously nobody was there. It was on a Tuesday, except for two people. And they joined me for the best part of an hour. And one of them said, they said, have you ever come across this site, Arbor? And I just thought, no. Well, after the lecture, have a look at this site, Arbor. And I said, all right then. So somehow I looked at it whilst I was still doing a presentation, and I said to the people who were watching, I will be doing a lecture on this, and the lecture I gave yesterday and a little bit of what we're doing today. And because I actually was bowled over by what I was seeing, they did some aerial photography, right? And I'm denying you that image at this minute. I'm deliberately denying you because I want you to see what this guy is saying in 1785. It was very important for Anne to make her contribution earlier on. So in other words, anyone who'd listened to that bit, they would have thought, oh right, Anne wasn't impressed by Arbor, but Anne was on about something else. So this is how things in history can get wrong. And by saying this is the Stonehenge of the North, which some people have actually done, they expect this to look like the Stonehenge of the North. It doesn't, and they expect that the stones are to be upright. This guy, Samuel Pegg, in 1785, inadvertently ordered the site to be a tourist hotspot, something that has thankfully never been capitalized on. In other words, thanks to the likes of Mike Parker Pearson, all the money seems to go into all the money seems to go into the fantasy that I would say is Stonehenge. So in other words, what we do, instead of studying in depth other sites, money is ploughed into Stonehenge. In other words, reinventing history. When sites like this, we need to try and get an idea what they're for. You know, we really, really do. And there is one thing about this, right? Reverend Samuel Pegg in 1785 recorded the following. William Norman Shaw, who was the tenant farmer who farmed over this land, said the following, about 60 years old, who claimed that some of the stones were standing in his memory. So remember, this is 1785, standing in his memory, go bigger than 1700s. We're thinking, right, these stones were standing. Now, lots of people have discounted this, right? And what I would like to do is I would like to ignore that image, ignore that. That's where it is, ignore that. And there they are. And they are looking flat. They are flat. Now, the one thing the people said, oh, you know, he was talking out of his hat. There's no evidence to say that these were ever standing. And you could define standing. Samuel Pegg turns out to be an analytical thinker, as he goes on to support his belief with some astute observations and noting the fragmentary state of some of the stones he suggested. So there we go. If we go there, at the top left-hand side of the screen, under Sue's story, you can see bits of stone. Over on the right hand, you can see bits of stone. Loads of bits of stone hanging around the larger bits of stone. There's over 50 stones at the site, but they're obviously all not intact stones. Right now, the one thing, talking about the story, talking about this story, trying to understand what this site is about, trying to follow the line. Bill and I know from close-hand experience in 1947, I think that's the date, and that's the date I'm going to use for the sake of argument. At the Ring of Brodgar, one of the stones was hit by a lightning bolt, and that lightning bolt cut the stone into two. Part of it landed on the floor and the other remained upright. Now, there's an important point with what I'm saying, right? These stones look very much broken. Everyone has presumed that Stonehenge was always one complete upright site. But what we're going to do, we're going to look at an image of Stonehenge. And what Tim Ingold teaches us is don't take anything for granted. Everything's a journey. Don't always presume that everything you see in the past is real. So let's go off this now. Let's just go and we do that. We're going to look at Stonehenge a minute. Again, still following the line. We're going to go to, we've come off. We're going to go there. We're going to ask a little question about Stonehenge. So we're going to go there. We're going to type Stonehenge. And maybe you already know what the question I'm going to ask about Stonehenge is. But then again, maybe you don't. So if I type in Stonehenge instead of looking for a stilt strimmer, stone, hang on, why is it? Right, stone. You could tell I look at stilts a lot, can't you? I lust over stilts. It's my pornography of the day.
What?
Well, okay. So, okay, Stonehenge. Doesn't Stonehenge look like it's in aspic? Right? Now, I can guarantee that those trilithon stones, some of the capstones on the trilithon stones 200 years ago weren't on them, right? And even a layman can, oh no, you're not looking at an image, are you? And you should have told me we weren't looking at an image, you useless woman. Oh, she knows not to take it personally. Right, Anne, Stonehenge. Does that look like it's an aspic?
Yeah.
Doesn't it look too perfect?
Yeah.
Right, now, I want us to, Arbolo is important for this story, right? And the reason why, what we're going to do, we're going to type in Stonehenge reconstruction. You're going to say that I've been looking at this so many times, but not the following, right? Okay, let's we'll go with the Stonehenge reconstruction in 1919, right? Now, that there, doesn't that stone look absolutely perfect?
No. Which one? Not the, well, the ones, you know, the ones.
The one on the right, you silly woman. We're doing 1919.
On. No, they don't look perfect.
No, and the stone on top.
The stone on top.
Yes, the one that's being lifted.
Oh well, it's all right. Yeah, it's smooth.
Oh, and you're making it so hard for myself. But what I'm trying to get at, right? If that had always been on top of there, right? Why wasn't it in 1,000 pieces on the floor, right? How has that managed, a big chunk of sandstone stone managed to fall off there and be intact? That is the point I'm trying to get at. What I'm trying to get at.
Just go about it in the roundabout way. You should ask someone else, not me.
Oh,
I'm just too logical.
I'm trying to be logical.
I know.
What I'm trying to get at is these stones, right? You know, there's no damage to them, right? They're almost perfect, and you start to think, were they always there? Were they?
No. Well, this is you should have shown before reconstruction.
Right. Okay. Right, can you see, right, what I'm trying to get at, right, is that if we digress to maybe looking at you know, we're seeing all this, reconstruction at Stonehenge, um and for some reason it just doesn't look right.
No,
um you know,
I
we're
didn't know
looking.
it was reconstructed.
Oh my God, that's, yes, we've mentioned this so many times. Right, look, right, okay, right. What it is, right? Big chunks of Stonehenge has been re-erected, right? So if we go to Stonehenge, Victorian Stonehenge, and um, some of the stones, some of the lintels are not on top, right? They've been put up
No, I
there in
know. Yeah, I knew
1958.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
yeah,
So in other words, if we're looking, you can clearly see those two images there,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You
And
can
of
you
course,
can
you've been there. I haven't been to Stonehenge.
if you look there, right? If you look there, you can see the right hand stone there. Go back up to the top of the screen. That stone has been straightened, and that one there, those two there, right, have been completely reconstructed,
Yeah.
along with some of the other stuff in the distance
Mm.
seems to be altered around. The point I'm trying to make is that if we go back to our below,
Mm.
right, we've got the problem of looking at our below and thinking, why are the stones, if they were upright, in so many pieces? Then you need to say, well, when you look at Stonehenge, why
Mm.
aren't the stones at Stonehenge in loads of pieces?
Yeah.
Bill could argue in an engineering way. Bill, I am picking on Bill now. Bill could turn around and say it could be possible that these stones have fallen down and not broken, right? But the ones that are below are in bits. Right,
Yeah.
I know that this is a different stone, but if you do look at other images of Stonehenge, right, and there you go. There's a very early one,
Mm.
right? There's a very early one, and there are big chunks of it. It's very crude. I think this is from about 1914 or something like that.
Mm.
I'm not telling you for 1 minute that these stones can't come down without breaking. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it's too much to believe that you know some of these stones that they've reconstructed are so intact, right?
Mm.
And also, I want to give you another point. Right now, this is a very, very deep point. All right, and this is what even Mike Parker Pearson will agree with. But I'm just going to bend it a different way. I'm going to put another curveball. Let's have a look at. Oh, yeah, there we go. And there's another little bit of reconstruction.
Yeah.
Right, that's I think that's 1958. I'm not sure. Obviously we've got reconstruction in 1919, right?
Well, like you say, we presume these henges have got those horizontal stones on top, but maybe they didn't.
Can I give you one intriguing fact? One intriguing fact that you all know about Stonehenge. Stonehenge took around 2,000 years to complete.
Mm.
How do we know it was ever completed?
Yeah.
How do we know that they completed it? What is complete at Stonehenge?
Mm.
And this is one of those things we always presume in archaeology that the past is complete, because the greatest example of that is if you for example think about Avebury. But I know we've gone slightly away from Arbolo, but we will come back for the last 10 minutes to Arbolo, right? I can't even spell Avebury. 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 I thought about buying Bill a pint when we went to Avebury.
Not for long, you didn't.
I never bought him one though. Right now, one of the things that we do see with reconstructions with Avebury, these standing stones. So you've got the outside bank, the ditch, and the stones. Right. You always see reconstructions that this stone circle is complete. All 90 sockets in the ground have got stones in them in every single, well, in most reconstructions. Lots of archaeologists now believe is that the stone circle was never ever completed. The ditch was completed. The bank was completed. And in many ways, you could say what is complete. Anne will know more than anybody going to art college that art is never a complete process. Art is an ever-breathing, ever-moving process. Am I right, Anne, or wrong?
Yes. Well, you're right. Yeah. It's always developing. Yeah.
So the one thing that we can say when we look at something like Avebury is to try and understand Avebury as that model to say that prehistory is always developing, always moving on, always trying to come into the present, because it's always in the present, because that's in the present now. So just a little bit more, we're going to go back to Arbor, right? And Bill, are you continuing after 7:10?
Yes, carry on. Yep, fine.
Because what I am going to do then is I'm going to run off and try and find my keys. So I'm going to have a 5-minute break after 10 past. Okay, so right, okay, I've got to get back to Arbor. And what we're going to do, we're going to stop that. Yeah, go on, and you can say something. Go on.
There was a little bit on here. It says the stones probably stood upright. A cove of stones in the middle faced the extreme midsummer setting point of the moon.
And actually, we're going to look at some of the views that actually portray that now. So we are going to do that.
Okay.
So what we're going to do now, hang on. Right. And I've given you control, semi-control. So if you see anyone else wanting to come on, bring them in. Okay. Bring them in. Right. So anyway, right. Where are we? I've got a chair. And then we got to do Arbor. Start, and we go with
Richard knows how to do this.
Oh God, right, don't muck it up, Anne.
All right.
So there we go. There's looking at Arbor from 1861. But and you can see that lots of the stones are higgledy-piggledy. We do know, however, that work between 1861 and going into the 1900s, some of the stones were moved, some of the stones were altered, some of the meanings of the stones changed in time, right? And actually, the plan is wrong. Or is it wrong? Because that may have been what it looked like in 1861. What it is, you can clearly see that the two sort of entranceways, the two causeways, are actually aligned. The one thing about the site is that when you actually do see the aerial views, they look slightly different. So if we sort of go on, and there is Arbor. I got to be honest with you, that looks spectacular.
Yeah, the mound. The ditch. No.
It really, really does. You're just talking about the cove in the middle. Very similar to the cove that we actually see with the site at Castlerig. So when we're thinking about Arbor, the dimensions about Arbor, let's just throw some of these in here. The dimensions of Arbor are to be seen that the stones are surrounded by an earthen bank, and this runs for 90 meters. So it's not a massive site, and we're going to do lots more of the dimensions after the break. But you can clearly see that the banks, the causeways either side, are not aligned. They're slightly off aligned. And that's really, really important when you're interpreting this site. and Anne mentioning about the alignments of the sun and the alignments of the moon. Very interesting stuff, because that's where we're going to go, and that's where we're going to finish on Arbor for this first part. And then what we're going to do, we're going to have a 5-minute break, so I can just try and find my keys. Otherwise, I'm going to have to break in later on. I know, yeah, basically I was trying to chase a sheep across a field, and I had upset her.
Oh,
So
keys. Oh, you
right,
might have lost them in the field.
no, I haven't lost them in the field. What it is, I put them down before chasing her, right? So what we're going to do, we've got Arbor Low. Oh, hang on, I've got to type this in here. It's not actually on my notes. Arbor folklore. Right, there's a specific thing I've got here which I didn't have up, so we're going to do that. Arbor folklore. It's going to come up now. Right, and does that look spectacular anyway? I think it looks very, very impressive.
Well, it's certainly, far more impressive than I thought it was. Yeah.
So this isn't the site that you've been to?
No, I think we might have seen the sign, because we went to the Nine Ladies, and it is the Nine Ladies, it is, and we might have seen the sign, and we probably didn't have time to go, which
Right,
is a shame, because yeah, it is. It shows
yeah, go on. Right,
shows
some more.
that it is a henge,
Now, this is something that we won't be doing afterwards, right? This is a bit of folklore about the site. So this double entrance henge monument stands high and commands a wide view of Middleton Moor. It was recorded as Harbelow with a H. Low, L-O-W-E. I wonder who's got that surname amongst you. In 1533. But no investigation had ever been done until the 1900s. That's actually not true. We've got investigations in the 1800s. Graves have been found there in the middle. One skeleton in particular near the 3 large stones in the middle. And it was determined that the 46 stones of the site have never been upright, having never found any cut marks in the limestone to hold them. Now, that's a really interesting point, because some archaeologists believe that there are cut marks in the ground to hold them. And one of the things I said on Tuesday, just in case I forget it later on, we do actually find holes being dug around the site, but those are holes associated with antiquarians. Tiny little bit of folklore, as I was meant to be doing. It was probably understood that people were buried there, as it was largely regarded as haunted. A shepherd in the late 1800s was given evidence that the local people never went near it because it was crawling with boggarts. Now, we don't want to be around boggarts. If any of you are actually, boggarts are like sort of entities that float in the air, and they will suck the life from you. Beware of the boggarts at Arbor. And now, one of the things, and you're right, and we will do this. We will do this after the break. There's a sense that there is an alignment for a mid-winter sunrise, and a mid-summer sunrise, and you've mentioned the moon as well. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a break now, right? So for this part of the lecture, so I can just run around and desperately find my keys. I would like to know if there's any questions from Bill or Anne or Richard.
Yeah. Whenever we talk about stone circles, Carl,
yes,
people immediately think of uprights, standing stones. Okay, but
I'm liking the way this is
going.
going.
That's not always the case, because we've been to a stone circle in Cornwall, where the stones in the circle were chest-high boulders, basically. And I'm looking at Arbor Low, many of those stones are not suitable for standing stones. They're just irregular stones which are being pulled into position for whatever reason they were. And certainly some of them seems to have been moved, as you say, because it's not a perfect circle. So there's been some interference in the past, probably much later than the time they were installed. So the mystery goes on, but forget the idea of standing stones, I think, as applied to all stone circles. It just isn't the case. They whatever they had locally and could drag into position, they did to represent what they wanted to represent, which we don't really know, do we? We're still arguing about that now. Were they family stones or tribal stones or whatever? We don't know. But
Well,
yeah.
So what it is, I've hardly given you any detail about the site at all, because we were looking at the line. So we've got a lot more detail about the site, some more images to look at, some great deep facts about the site. So that's what we're going to be doing after the break. Anne, anything you'd like to say, lovely?
well, the nine ladies are much more interesting, I think, because there's more information about them, because they are definitely Bronze Age. But this one seems to fall between the two.
Don't say anymore, because that's what we're going to do after. That's what we're going to do after the break.
Late Stone Age to Bronze Age, because there's and it's I just think also, Cornwall, Devon, Derbyshire, Cotswolds, all these places have got stone circles, like we've seen in Cornwall. There's some in the Cotswolds, the Nine Knights or something there.
Right.
They're just sort of stones, like you say, chest height or whatever. But I think it's all to do with who had the money and who was interested in them at the time. Like it's a big settlement. Well, all right then. Avebury and Salisbury are like almost, the southeast, aren't they? So they're, London, outside London. I think that's where people lived, who were rich in the south, and they just thought they were more interesting sites. Somebody made a decision about who would reconstruct them and who would, do whatever. And we still don't know why they were reconstructed.
But obviously, Anne, we got more information after the break. So.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Bill.
Sorry, what?
Guess what I found? I found my keys.
Oh,
right.
Bill.
Okay, so what we so obviously I do just need a 5-minute break just to run and get some power leads for the equipment. So I'm gonna. I would also like a drink. So I've got my I've got some nice fresh orange juice to drink here. So I gotta go and get this. Pointless me setting up over there when it's going to take too long. I'm going to waste too much time. Right, Richard. Anything you want to say, darling?
Well, love, I got a piece on there actually in a book here.
Yeah.
You see that?
Show it to us now. That's it. Below.
Yeah.
That is really nice image.
Britain.
Yeah. I got the Telegraph.
It's definitely a mystery. So what I'm going to do, Richard, what I'm going to do, Richard, if you get that page open in front of you, for the next bit, you'll be able to follow the lecture a little. Oh, are you staying with us now? Or are you going?
Yeah, no, I'll stay for a bit.
All right, then. So what I'm going to do now, you know what I'm doing. I got to go and get a glass. So
yeah, I say there's a few pieces there written on it.
Carl,
I'll tell you after.
Carl, this is supposed to be an hour lecture, but I'll stay with you till 7:45, and then I'll sign off, okay?
Yeah, you can stay with us to 7:45. So what I'm going to do, guys, you know what I got to do.
I'm
I won't be long. I'll be back now.
Go and chase your sheep.
I'm going to get a drink. Oh.
And I am going to see if I can find the Penrys well. My book, The Living Wells of Wales. You know, the Penrhys is here. Brecon Beacons, Mid Wales. The valleys, here we are. Penrhys, 214. Two, 1, 4. Ah, yeah, 2, 1, 4. St Mary's Well, Penrhys. The Holy Well. All I can see is a bloody rusty car. What a terrible picture. Why did they do that? What a silly man.
I'm back. I thought Henry was already on. Right. Who have we got here now? We've got we're waiting for Henry. Henry is signing in from a castle in Scotland, apparently. He's I don't know where he is. He's at some kind of castle. I don't know. Oh, come on, you French person. I tell you what, the French are always last, aren't they, in battles?
Where are you?
Well, apparently I've just told everybody they're in a castle in Scotland. That don't look like a castle.
No, I got back. I got back early before the storm came.
Well, hang on a minute. I've told them that you've been to a bloody castle. Now you've got to tell it what castle it was.
In Warwickshire.
Oh,
Not in Scotland.
right. So you've been to Warwick Castle.
Yes.
Oh, well, I thought you'd been somewhere interesting.
And it was raining.
Warwick Castle was a favourite of one of our older members, one of our past members, Jean.
Ah, Jean.
Yeah.
Tell them all about Jean.
Was it Warwick Castle or is there another one around there? Kenilworth? No, Kenilworth? Oh. Anyway, it's very nice. When did you go to Warwick Castle?
Over the last couple of days, that's all.
Oh, Henry.
Yes.
You went to Warwick Castle.
Yes.
Oh,
On that note, we're going to get started. What I should have done is to what I should have done was to end the previous lecture and start a new one. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing now. I've got my pen ready. So we're just gonna a nice little group tonight. So that's good.